Welcome to the Contrarians and to another episode of Battle of the Rock. Tonight, Scorpions Tokyo Tapes take on Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. We want to hear from you in the chat. Which is better? Let's do it. Welcome to the Contrarians and to another episode of Battle of the Rock. Dave, didn't we just do one of these last night?
Yes.
We did Alice Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
This is Battle of the Rock week. Maybe. I don't know. But tonight we are looking at the Scorpions. We're doing live albums. We're looking at the Scorpions Tokyo Tapes and Judas Priest Unleashed in the East, both recorded in 78. Came out in 1979. So we're going to look at both records. So the way we normally do this, we'll look at one record for half an hour, we'll look at the other record for a half an hour, and we'll go around to the panel and ask them what they like, what they don't like, and get their rating out of 10. We will determine which is the better live album. Maybe. But the whole goal here, ladies and gentlemen, is just to talk music, to be quite honest, and turn you on to these records if you don't know them. Look, Dave, for God's sakes, look at you shine like the Northern Star.
Yeah, looking good.
Tonight, we've got two. Yes, he's good. We got both Davids here tonight, and Martin and myself. And I think we just should get started. I think I'm just going to go. And they're both West Coast Daves too. We need a.
There's more than one.
I don't know. We're going to go. I'm going to call. Yeah. Well. Man, we're just going to go.
I'll be Southwest Dave.
Southwest Dave. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Southwest Dave and West Coast Dave. Southwest Dave's going to start us off, and then we'll go to West Coast Dave and then Martin. I don't really have much to say about these records other than I do have Tokyo Tapes, and that wins for me. But anyway, Southwest Dave.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll lead off. We're starting with Tokyo Tapes. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, very good. So it's interesting for me. So, these albums, as I went through them, had a lot of similarities, I thought, but were very different for me personally, being as I love both bands, but the Scorpions really have been a seminal band for me. So I was very familiar with Tokyo Tapes. I know it backwards, forwards, upside and down, all that. Unleashed in the East, less so for me. I had it in the collection, but I just have the sort of the remaster with the extra tracks. Probably have a Lair.
Yeah, right? I've never owned it. I've never heard it.
So
missed it out.
So I thought, I thought that the interesting thing, obviously, both these, whoever put this suggestion together was pretty good. I think these albums line up interesting next to each other because they are kind of come out in the same era. I think they both sort of represent sort of an end of an era for the bands in a sense. There's some lineup changes that happen after both of these records. Both these records sort of have some covers on them. Both these records have been remastered and re-released in more recent years with expanded editions. But again, so very, very different for me. I really like Tokyo Tapes a lot. It's been sort of a really important record for me. I think while my entry point to the Scorpions was later, as we've talked about probably every time I'm on one of these, my entry point is really Worldwide Live era. So if we're talking about live albums, and I think that was another interesting similarity is both these bands had, another live album that kind of came out relative to each other with Priest Live and Worldwide Live sort of representing kind of the next era of this. There's sort of some, interesting alignments that happen with two bands that normally I don't think of, being too similar, right? So, anyway, so Tokyo Tapes, again, pretty important record for me. Although I entered kind of into the Scorpion sphere in the Worldwide Live era, as soon as you sort of dive into that Uli Roth era, obviously completely different time for the band sonically, but I think it was really, to me, really great they did this and captured this lineup and this era of the band before they kind of moved on. It was nice to have this sort of record of events or this record of this time period. So for me, I really like this record a lot. I think it's put together really nice. I think the initial track list is pretty nice. I think it's generally, typically a double record. There might have been a single disc version, like might have not had Polar Nights, but this is the remaster, and it's got some additional tracks, some that appear on some repeat tracks, but maybe a different night, and then a couple of tracks that are not on the original release. So the remaster is pretty nice. I think, you know, some of the highlights for me: In Trance, We'll Burn the Sky, Pictured Life, and Speedy's Coming are a few songs that I think are real standouts for this period. I was disappointed, and I say I listened to it backwards and forth a million times. I went back and I initially couldn't remember. Maybe it's just old age, but whether or not the Sales of Charon was on this, and it's not, and that's sort of disappointing. I thought that was maybe a miss. I think that's a pretty nice, highlight from the Uli Roth era that would have been a nice inclusion with this, but for whatever reason left off. So kind of if there's a minus for me, it's the omission of Sales of Charon, and then I don't particularly like the covers on this record. I think the addition of Long Tall Sally and Hound Dog really is it Long Duck Dong? Is that what I'm doing? Am I going back to the 80s and movies? So I think yeah, back to the 80s. So I think the two covers on this, I think I understand why. I think this, as with Unleash in the East, both also similarly are recorded in Japan. So I think maybe for that crowd, it makes sense to do some of this, some of the American music or whatever. It's kind of fun. I don't particularly think it adds much to it for me. I like this record a lot, and I'm going to give it an 8.5.
All right, 8.5. I like that.
Tokyo Tapes.
I can't argue with that. You must say that Uli's guitar on there freaking just... Dave, you didn't mention anything about that. Just Uli's just like on fire.
No, yeah, Uli is great. I think, like I said, I mentioned. I figure I leave something for everybody else, but I think Uli's, the fact that they captured this era, formally and officially is fantastic, and to the extent that Sales of Charon was not included was sort of a miss. But yeah, I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, Uli's a master.
All right, 8.5. Thank you. Southwest Dave.
All right, we'll go with that for
That's his new name. All right, West Coast Dave, you're up. What's your thoughts on Tokyo Tapes and your rating? Evidently, he likes it, and your rating out of 10.
You want to buy that right now. If you're a little kid like I was, seeing that in the record rack, or even if you're an adult, if you're anybody, I mean, he's defying physics there. That's just amazing. It just looks like it rocks. I mean, it looks like the music sounds. I think it's just a fantastic cover. Same with the Priest one too. Really good. All right. So a couple things I just think are, well, first of all, Tokyo Tapes just blows my mind because I'm a big Uli worshiper. I love Uli. I've seen him a few times. In fact, one of the funnest things that ever happened to me at a show is last time I went to see Uli. He pointed at me and he said, "I remember you." And I was just like, yes. And what was really funny too is my wife wasn't standing next to me at the time. So after the show, I said, "You remember when Uli called out that person? And that was me." And she was like, "No way." And we laughed about that a lot. So, me and Uli are like this, man.
Nice.
If you get a chance to go see Uli, I strongly, strongly suggest you do. Because pretty much what he does is he plays Tokyo Tapes, but he has a bunch of younger dudes around him that can like hit the notes and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Uli, fantastic, man. There was no audience recorded on the album at all. So they took, Uli said they took all the audience from Peter Frampton Comes Alive. And he wasn't a huge fan of that idea, but they didn't record an audience at the time. So what are you going to do? There are no overdubs on Tokyo Tapes, according to Uli, which is something a lot of people complain about when it comes to live albums from the 70s, that they have overdubs on them. So I'm going to say it. It starts out with 3 real crowd pleasers, just rockers. I'm going to start talking about Polar Nights, I think, first, though. So the first 2 minutes, it's just Uli's Jimi Hendrix fetish with the riffing and the soloing around. And this kind of shows that there's sort of 2 halves to Scorpions at this time. A lot of people said, you guys are like 2 different bands. you're two separate bands. You're like the Teutonic Rock band, and then your Uli's Hendrix Obsession band. And so some people did think that went together. I think it's great. I'll take both sides of the coin on that one for sure. But that's definitely Uli's song, so that means Uli's gonna sing. Not always the best thing. Sometimes his voice really sounds bad, and on other songs it sounds okay. It's passable and it's cool, and I'll kind of get into that later. But there is just some rip-roaring soloing going on in the song, and just some crazy feedback noise. And I love that Hendrix inspiration on this whole album. Just all the noise and the feedback and the wailing and the soaring and the diving and the guitar playing. It's just out of control good. In Trance, he takes too much on the Saturday night. I believe he sings. One thing I want to say too is Klaus Meine, I think, is a really good singer. I think that Rob Halford is a much better singer if we're going to compare them. But, good old Klaus, he can still hold his own. I really like how In Trance starts out with like sort of a somber minor arpeggio guitar part, and he gives way to that really nice backbeat groove. And then the solos in the song, they're really memorable and melodic. They really belong in the song as part of the song, and it's not just like, okay, now it's time for Uli to rip. It really belongs to the song. We'll Burn the Sky. I love all that stuff. I guess Monica Danneman helped write the lyrics. And so Uli was so obsessed with Jimi Hendrix that he started going out with Jimi Hendrix's old girlfriend, and then she was writing lyrics for them. That's kind of interesting to me. Suspender Love. This song's hilarious. So this is like the kinky, it's a song that's fun for the ladies. It's got a big, bouncy, fun bass riff. Everybody starts clapping along to it at the beginning. And so it's Klaus Meine's attempt to sort of be a sex symbol, which is kind of hilarious. But I love it. And when I say it's hilarious, there's things that are so funny about the Scorpions, like their broken English in the lyrics. And I think I can laugh at it, I can laugh with it, and I think it actually makes everything better. It just makes everything more entertaining. There's some turns of phrase that Klaus Meine does that are so hilarious. And no one's editing them and saying, well, that doesn't really sound right in English. For instance, during that song, he says, "Your horny body drives me mad." So not only is the subject,
hey, that sounds good to me. Come on,
hey,
that's classic.
sure it does. That's why it's in the song, right? In Search of the Peace of Mind. So this is like a beautiful softie that actually came off the first album that Uli was not on, but he still really likes this song. And it's just an example of, it's a slowdown, it's a ballad. A lot of people might not like that. I think it's beautiful. I think the guitars were really singing when the guitars play during the verses, and the note choices are very melodic. It's not just blues-based guitar playing. There's more of a European flair to it with some of the note choices. Fly to the Rainbow. This is 9 minutes and 30 seconds of just madness. I'm bowing down. To me, it's the album's highlight. It's the centerpiece of the whole thing. And I call it a trip through the magical world building of Uli, because the song gives away to Uli's mystical poetic musings, which I think are just electric. So part of it, he says, "I lived in magic solitude of cloudy looking mountains and a lake made out of crystal raindrops." Wow.
Acid trip for me.
A very acid influenced, hippy dippy trippy, as you would say, maybe. What's hilarious too is when he goes, "Shh." So nice. They do that in Spinal Tap too as a joke. I wonder if they got it from that.
I bet you they got it from, of course they did.
Another great line is he says, "A broken violin floating alone in December." Wow, what an image that makes,
I
right?
know what that means.
Right. I kind of do. It's melancholy, It's also very LSD inspired, I think. And there's so much heaviness in the melancholy of this. And I just love how the song ends in dive bombing, echo-laden groans of cosmic ecstasy, of feedback and noise all over the place. Uli's just tearing it up.
He's all over it.
Oh, man. I mean, that is once again, I just bow down. That is one of the greatest guitarist performances I'd ever heard anywhere. And that goes the same for this whole album with Uli. If somebody said Uli is the greatest guitar player in rock and roll, I probably wouldn't argue. He just blows me away. He's a woman, she's a man, confused me a lot when I was a little kid, but I finally came to understand what that meant. Before Speedy's coming, he says, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And it sounds so exciting. I love that. Speedy's Coming is another one of my favorite songs. The drums sort of appear out of this feedback mist. And then the lyrics are just about being a huge rock fan, having posters on your wall. You like Ringo Starr, right? And so this song's just about the love of rock, and it rocks and it's fast. I love that. I'm going to skip to Steam Rock Fever in LA. What is that? I don't know. I've been to LA many times and there's never been any Steam Rock Fever there. So that's just another one of those things that makes me laugh about the lyrics and maybe the broken English and kind of getting lost in translation. Something they're trying to say right there. Dark Lady. Wow. I mean, just another mind-blowing Uli moment there. It's one of his best songs. It's got that seminal opening chug riff that is so good. I like how Klaus Meine sings with him on this song. So Uli gets a little help with the melodies there. The guitar interplay in between the verses, they're getting some dual guitar work in there. It's not all just Uli. Shanker's getting up in there too, so that's good. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was Robot Man, just because that's just old school rock meets new school Teutonic metal riffing. They're kind of smashed together on that song. It's sort of like a hyper sped up like Chuck Berry number or something like that. I think it's really cool. I'm a robot man. I'm a loser. It's a robot man with low self-esteem, importantly, and it's just an excuse to go crazy and rock. And then they break it all the way down and then explodes into this ending. It's just really great stuff. I actually, if you told me I could only keep one of these albums forever, I would definitely keep Tokyo Tapes. I am rating it a 9.25 out of 10.
9.25.
Now, in my personal opinion, like what I would give it a 10. If somebody asked me what is this album, I'd say it's a 10. But I'd say the only things that are taking away from it are maybe some of the things that got mentioned, like Hound Dog and Long Tall Sally, and the traditional Japanese folk number. I don't know if people really want to hear that or not. And the fact that Uli can't really sing that well. So kind of more objectively, I'm giving it a 9.25. But in my mind, in my heart, it's a 10 all the way. But for this show, we'll call it 9.25.
All right, 9.25, and we have an 8.5.
Nice.
Let's throw it over to Mr. Popoff and get his thoughts on it and his rating out of 10.
So I remember getting this as a new release and thinking a couple of things. It's like thinking, okay, this band, it's kind of cool that this underground band that we've been into for a little while now is big enough to have a double album gatefold live album. I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool that they get to go to Tokyo. I love the front cover as well. And the fact that there's Japanese writing on there. The title is cool. Yeah, that was great. That just looks so exotic, right? So for a live album, I don't think they could have done much better for track selection at this point, except for Sales of Sharon and Virgin Killer. So I think there's two big, heavy classics that are missing off of this. But other than that, they get every song that us as a young, angry metalhead, I would have been 15 at the time, would have wanted on this thing. You do get the two songs that are non-LP and All Night Long and Suspender Love. Both are heavy enough, but neither of them sound particularly like Scorpions. And I remember me and my buddies like thinking, this is pretty cool that they're on here. It reminds me very much of Ted Nugent Double Live Gonzo doing a bit of that and, getting Kill the King on Rainbow on stage. But yeah, so you start off, you get some good commercial tracks off of Virgin Killer, Pictured Life, Backstage Queen, Polar Nights, less commercials off the same album, the dual kind of band thing there, into Entrance, which has to be here. That's turned out to be a big, proto power ballad classic kind of thing. Will Burn the Skies, maybe, I would say it's my fourth favorite track off of Taken by Force, but it's good that that's here. Could have done without In Search of Peace of Mind, and even Fly to the Rainbow. Sorry, West Coast Dave. I barely even know that song because to me it was just all about Speedy's Coming, basically, off of that album, right?
Fly to the Rainbow is my favorite Scorpions album, for sure.
Favorite album? Wow.
By the Scorpions, yeah.
Right. Okay. You move into side 3, and it's pretty interesting. I think He's a Woman, She's a Man, which Uli hated, and that's one of the reasons he quit the band. He hated the lyrics. And Speedy's Coming and Top of the Bill. I think what you have there is 3 songs that all sound like the Matthias Jabs era. We're moving into the new era of Scorpions there. So they're sounding very modern. I love, David, that you mentioned the idea of this being the end of both of these albums have sort of an end of an era feel to it. And for obvious, even more demarcated reasons with Scorpions. Hound Dog and Long Tall Sally, it's only taken up about 4 minutes here. But this is kind of that rock and roll medley thing. Sweet did it. Uriah Heep did it. Queen did it. It just drove me nuts. I hate it. I think I did an entire podcast episode on the rock and roll medley on live albums or live shows. But I like your point. I didn't really think of it that way. It's like we're going to Japan. Maybe it's something they were even more so, or thought that it would go over well and we don't have to pull it out for Japan kind of thing. So that's kind of neat. Get over to side 4. And again, all of these, even Dark Lady, because it's pretty strident. I mean, it's a classic to me, but it almost feels like it could be Matthias Jab era. It does have a little, or Yabs, right? It does have a little more texture to it. Steam Rock Fever, Uli didn't like that song either. But yeah, I think the Steam Rock Fever for sure and Robot Man feel like they could have been modern era. You've got the Japanese ballad in there that they wanted to put in. I think I look at this record and a big comparison. I won't go too much into the Priest, but imagine, if I got to pick a single LP version of this, it would be an even more of a barnstormer. But they couldn't have done. Yeah, this is almost a perfect track listing, except for, I guess except for the Japanese song, the rock and roll medley, really, that's about it. Everything else kind of has definitely legitimate to be there. And I think the production's really good on it as well. Again, I don't remember being blown away by the 2 new songs, and there's a few dropout points on there, but still a really cool live album. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard it here first. What did you originally give this? Do you remember, when you rated this back years ago in your book?
I don't know. Probably around there, because I'm not big on live albums anyway. So even the perfect albums, I knock back a couple notches.
Well, sometimes things change.
Yeah.
All right. What'd you say, an 8?
Yep.
All right. So we got an 8.5, a 9.25, and an 8. So we come up with an 8.6. I can't argue with that. I mean, I could go into it, but it's going to throw off all the. I'm just going to be. But I think 8.5, 8.6. I think that's good. Same thing. Hound Dog, the 50s song, and the Japanese thing. I could probably do without. But hey, was the idea for this record though? Was this idea for this? I really don't know the answer. Was this just supposed to be a record for Japan, or was this going to be a live album released everywhere?
No, I don't think they were thinking that. I think it was more like, in fact, I'm remembering now because I've just been re-editing my Scorpions book. It's going to come out again with a new cover and some rewriting and stuff and new chapters and things. But if I remember correctly, it was more about they're recording it anyways on this really nice equipment. So it's there. So half the job's almost done kind of thing. Let's put it out. Might have been a bit of a goodbye to Uli sort of thing. They left on pretty good terms. So it was all that. It's like, we're going to get a good live album out of this. The tapes are done. Let's it's the next step is not too hard to do. So, but thinking about it, RCA is not the biggest metal label. They've stuck with them a long time. They haven't been selling much. It's kind of surprised that RCA would put out a double live Scorpions.
And to the extent that they did, the beautiful gatefold
Yeah.
The photography, the layout on it,
Yeah.
they were pumping some money into the Scorpion. So I don't know. Maybe they knew something was coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'll make
man,
one more quick point. I think there's a difference here between the whole Kiss Alive situation where, Kiss is trying to get much more exciting, much better versions of the earlier songs. There's more of a gulf because the Scorpions albums are all recorded quite well anyways, and the performances are dynamic and they're, the drum sounds are bold. I don't think this is like a crazy improvement in heaviness or energy or anything over the studio versions. I think the studio versions are great.
mhm. There you go. Well, there you go. We got an 8.6. All right. Now we're going to pop over to our other record, Unleashed in the East. Both came out in 1979. Judas Priest, Dave with the visuals. Who needs visual of Dave here?
I thought Tokyo Tapes was August 78.
Well, it's probably, I think it was recorded in August, but it came out in 79.
Oh, I thought it was recorded a little earlier. April. I thought it said April, recorded April 78, out in August 15, 78.
Let's see.
Unleashed.
Tokyo Tapes
78.
was recorded April 24th and 27th in 1978. And Priest was February 10th and 1579.
And then out in September 21st, 70. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Unleashed in the East, Judas Priest. Let's throw it over to what Dave are you again?
All right. I don't know. Today I'm Southwest Dave.
Southwest Dave. I'm never going to remember that.
All
And
right.
we're only going to use it this show.
Yeah, it'd be different every time. Maybe that's just
Southwest Dave. Go every time he'll have a new
have a
name.
different one. That'll be the
Southwest
stick.
Dave. What's your thoughts on Priest? Let's hear it.
Yeah.
And your rating out of 10, please.
You got it. So this was a different. Aside from all the similarities that we've outlined, I think this was a different experience for me because, like I said, the Scorpions are a sort of seminal band. I got everything. I know everything's upwards and sideways from the very beginning through Rock Believer, right? That's come out. Other than Kiss, I think Scorpions I've seen them almost as many times live as I've seen Kiss, and so Judas Priest is sort of different in that I've seen Priest a few times. I have largely the whole catalog in the collection, but this was an album that I had, and I think I showed it. I have the remaster version of this, which does have a few extra tracks. But it's a relatively short record. I think the original release is like 9 tracks. So I think, in contrast to the Scorpions record, it's shorter. So I've sort of been accustomed to the remaster, which is the one I have. And so I really had to go back and revisit it. It wasn't something that I had revisited in a while. For me, sort of the Priest record, that if I'm looking for a Priest live record, I go to Priest Live because that's the era that I originally got involved with the band. And so that has some nostalgia built in for me. So I go grab Priest Live if I'm usually, that's where I'll gravitate. But, in revisiting it, I liked it a lot. Certainly it'll be difficult, probably impossible to live up to how I feel about Tokyo Tapes and just to reiterate the other West Coast Dave. I think, if you get a chance to see Uli Roth live, I've had a chance to see him a couple times in recent years. He doesn't play generally very large venues in the U.S., and it's a real treat to see him play. He plays forever. I mean, 3 hours, and he plays a set of the classical sort of his solo, stuff, and then we'll break and come back and basically, as Dave said, just run through Tokyo Tapes basically, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, I think he's coming to the United States again at the end of the year. So for those listening to this, if you haven't and you're interested, look it up and go. So that's the end of that commercial. So Unleashed in the East for me, and again, different than Tokyo Tapes for me in that I tend to enjoy the covers on this record. So Green Manalishi and Diamonds and Rust are, for me, a couple of standout tracks. Whereas the covers on Tokyo Tapes to me are sort of throwaways and don't move the needle for me. So that's different. Another thing that maybe I didn't like as much about the Unleashed album is that I had read, and maybe Martin or Dave or Grant, you are aware, but that there have been more overdubs on this record. So in fact, I think Halford had said that his vocals were lost and had to go back and re-record the vocals. So
he was ill. During the original recording, Halford was sick.
Yeah, so to me, like I don't penalize them tremendously because everybody does it. If you own Kiss Alive, then what are you complaining about? But for me, if you're going to get a live album and you're doing one that was largely live, maybe except for the audience, versus one that was had to have significant overdubs, then to me, Tokyo Tapes sort of gets an edge in that regard. So like I said, for me, it documents a particular era of Priest, one that I've grown to like quite a bit, but is not sort of my wheelhouse of Priest. Really, it's for me Hellbent for Leather, kind of forward. And I know in the reissue there's some tracks that were added from the Hellbent for Leather album, which I think was Killing Machine at the time, but not except for the U.S. But in any case. So to me, this one doesn't move the needle as much as Tokyo Tapes for me, for a lot of reasons. I think there's some highlights. I think it, in addition to the two covers, I really like Exciter. I think that's a strong track. So definitely worth getting. I think it certainly captures an era of this band. It's heavy. It comes off pretty raw, and I like that. So no complaints there. For me, though, it just doesn't move the needle. I gave Tokyo Tapes 8.5. I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Right.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dave. All right, West Coast Dave, you're up, my friend.
Okay, so for me, this is my favorite era of Priest. I mean, I do like the stuff that they put out after this album, but I thought that this live album, Unleashed in the East, was put out at a really good point in their career where that's all my favorite music by them and my favorite era of theirs. And I think you don't have the British Steel songs that everybody's heard way too many times on this, and I think that really helps this a lot as far as track selection goes. There's no softies on this album. They don't really slow down at all, except for some dynamics in some of the songs. So I would imagine a lot of people really like that about it. I wish Exciter started like the album version with the drum intro, the way it is on Stained Class. This has a little bit of an odd introduction with some chording, and then it just kind of stops, and then that main fast riff for Exciter starts way faster than on the studio album too. That's a hard riff to play. I try to play that a lot. And I've seen on YouTube Glenn Tipton mess that up live on YouTube a lot too. It's difficult to play, but it's just a great opening riff. It's just sick, and the song is nice and fast. It's such a great Priest song. So many classic lines. I mean, he says, "Fall to your knees and repent if you please." I mean, that's just all time. This is so iconic. You'll never see him, but you will taste the fire upon your tongue. That is great stuff right there. It's very well delivered. I would say, since we're comparing the two albums, definitely Rob Halford's the better vocalist here, all the way. Running Wild, I think, is a 10+ song. It's so exciting. Halford starts out by going right, and then it pummels right into a song. It doesn't even, it's only like 3 minutes long. It's nice and fast. I move amongst the nightlife, and I make them step aside. More great words that I just thought about over and over in my head over the years. By the way, I did have this album when I was growing up too. I had Tokyo Tapes and Unleashed in the East from the time I was pretty little. So I've had a lifetime to live with these albums and think about them and enjoy them. Sinner is mind-blowing. The first 3 songs on this record are just like, wow. It's not just a 1-2 punch, it's a 1-2-3 on that one. The whamming echo guitars, that's mostly KK's thing. When there's all the whammy and the swooping and the diving and the echoes, that's mostly KK. And it sounds really good on this. This is really his song, his guitar song in a lot of ways. It's just a killer riff again. It's an epic start to finish, a top form, the vocals. Can't you hear their blood is boiling, setting them alight? I mean, it's just amazing. Once again, the combination of the lyrics and the words, and the band is just playing as a solid unit, and it's just fantastic stuff. The last note of the song, the sinner I mean, whoa, just bring it home right there. Crazy, crazy good vocals. I mean, has anybody really sang heavy metal that well? I doubt it. At least as far as I'm concerned. The Ripper, how about the vocal beginning when he says, "You're in for a shock"? I mean, that is just, once again, man, you just play that over and over. You want to hear that over and over, just going like, how did he do that, Green Mangalushi, I love Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac. That is a fantastic song. It's a great cover. It's a great choice. The night is so black that the darkness cooks. Just fantastic lyrics once again. I can't believe you needed my love so bad. That part's so great. I just love it. Once again, the high notes at the end of that song, Green Mangalushi, are just absolute madness. The Diamonds and Rusts, great Joan Baez cover. It's worked perfectly. I've always been into that. Victim of Changes. Okay, so this is Judas Priest 101 to me. It's their best song. It's definitely better on this album than it was on the studio version. The guitars just wail and feedback on the song. They dive and they soar around. Some great lines in there. You realize you're getting old and no one seems to care. I can't tell you how many times I've thought about that and repeated that line in my head. When he says, I've had enough, good God, pluck me. Don't really know what that means, but it's a very iconic moment in the song. Of course, it breaks down into the whole part where he starts saying, once she was beautiful. That's great, just dynamically, how they break the song down like that. And then, of course, when it comes back in and he says victim of changes, that's the greatest vocal performance on any heavy metal song I've ever heard. That scream right there, it just sends shivers down my spine. And then even at the end when he's just going, no, 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 it's so powerful. I couldn't score that song high enough in my book. That is just says everything Judas Priest ever wanted to say. Everything on that song's just perfect. Genocide and Tyrant are two classic Priest songs. They were never really my favorite ones. I guess I like Tyrant a little better. Genocide to me is a little long, but both of those songs definitely sound better than the studio versions. I would have liked of course, this was only a single album, so you got limited choices of songs there. Some early songs that could have fit on here that I really like might have been Dreamer Deceiver, Dissident Aggressor, Beyond the Realms of Death is one that people complain about. And then there are other songs that got recorded on the masters but never put out. Take on the World, Beyond the Realms of Death, Evil Fantasies, and White Heat, Red Hot are out there somewhere. Some of them appeared as bonus tracks and some of them didn't. Anyway, I mean, I was going to say 10 out of 10. I think I'm going to back off my straight up 10 out of 10 and give this one a 9.5.
All right.
Right.
So who was the Joan Baez fan in Judas Priest? How did they end up doing that song? Does anybody know?
Producer suggested it. They didn't think of it.
Well, you never know. Someone. KK could have been a Joan Baez fan, for all I know. So what was your score, Dave? Sorry.
9.5.
9.5. All right, cool. Well, it's a good song anyway. So, all right. Thanks, Dave. All right, Martin, you're up next. What's your thoughts on this song?
So comparing with the Scorpions, I mean, the Scorpions seemed like a thankless band going along, doing great versions of their songs, but they put out this live album. It's on RCA. It still feels like a little obscure. When you get to the Priest, it's like that album cover reminds you of Kiss Alive. It feels right off the bat that this is a band kind of going places. There's kind of an excitement that this is a celebration of the back catalog more than the Scorpions. The Scorpions is more like a demonstration of the back catalog. This is like a celebration, a party at maybe the end of an era. We don't know it's the end of an era, but it feels like a party that this band is on their way up. I did a History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff podcast episode on the heaviest albums of the 70s. And I could not find, and if you're allowed to include live albums, and I could not find an album that I thought was even remotely as heavy as this. Motorhead, Overkill, Motorhead, Bomber, that Heavy Load album, Ram Jam, Kiss Alive came out pretty heavy, actually. Ted Nugent, Scorpions, Tokyo Tapes, but this album is just so much heavier, I think, than any album ever made in the 70s, if you're including live albums. My favorite Priest album is Hellbent for Leather. So it's too bad that there's just Green Manalishi, which is a cover I'm not crazy for them to. I didn't think, like, I liked that song on there, but I liked a lot of the originals better. I'd say 3 or 4 or 5 of my favorite Priest songs are on that album: Delivering the Goods, Burning Up, Running Wild, Rock Forever, Hellbent for Leather, way up my list. But on here you get Running Wild, which I think is probably my second favorite Priest song. I love it to death, and I'm glad it's on here. So I would have liked to have heard more on here. I know on the Japanese situation, we got Rock Forever, we got Hellbent, we got Delivering the Goods. Delivering the Goods is, I think, my favorite Priest song of all time. So yeah, to see this sort of grab bag of side one, but still really good. Just touching down on all the eras. We don't get any rock-a-rolla, but we get all the other eras represented here. We get over to side 2. Diamonds and Rust, I could have done without. It's the only thing that's not making this a absolutely purely heavy metal album all the way through kind of thing. And this whole idea of victim of changes, genocide, and tyrants. You've got these. That always seemed like a really cool move to me. You got these 3 epic tracks from 4 records ago, back to the second record, 3 records ago, whatever it is. It's like this statement that they realize already that album is going to become a classic that people are just going to love and say this was a super important record. And they're just going bang, bang, bang. 3 tracks from 1976, which is wild. And on these, because you're going back to that album, which I thought was always well recorded, but it is very polite and scientific and warm and sober, right? But very professional, that album. So these tracks always reminded me of that idea of the Kiss Alive thing, where you're going back to those old recordings and just giving you the absolute crazy party time version of them, sort of thing. So that was always cool to see. So yeah, there's just something more world beating and cooler about this album. Whereas the Scorpions just seems like this obscure, thankless task of a band. Wow, I can't believe we got a trip to Japan. It never felt like, Uli's going, and they just seemed like not on the trajectory yet of they were going to be big. But when I look at that front cover of the Priest album, it's like they look like comic book heroes already, and they're on the way. Everybody loved this album. It was so heavy. There's just I'm not a big live album person at all. But generally speaking, I will always say, "Oh, give me the double live album." But there's just something cool about when these bands just get in there and get out with the single live album that's kind of just got this kind of just kind of like a cool vibe to it, right? Saying, we're going to go out there. It's that whole idea of like being the support band and just giving everybody your best 45 minutes sort of thing, right? A lot of bands relish doing that, and it feels like that for me. So yeah, absolutely world beating. It just proved that they were the greatest heavy metal band on the planet at that point. Like nobody could touch them. And I'd been thinking that since Sad Wings anyways. It was like, this is a godly weird situation how good this band is, right? Compared to everybody else. And it was just sort of confirmed with this. So I'm going 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. No one thinks that they got ripped off because it only had 9 tracks and it should have been a double record.
Well, you got 3 7-minuters, right? Mm-hmm. You are getting to be a fairly long single vinyl album here with what they did with it. So
it just seems to me when I look at Tokyo Tapes, it just seems so well done, well thought out.
We did point out that there's some fat they could have cut off it or whatever, right? And yeah, some really old krautrocky material on it too, right? Although not much. I mean, they really did hit hard with the. But you might have like I say with this high idea of Scorpions, which actually is not that big. Priest, it is big. Maybe Priest deserved the double live album a bit more.
I think probably. But then again, maybe RCA was looking at it going, I don't know. I think something's going to happen with the Scorpions, and they probably just pump money into it because it's just a beautiful representation. I'll just leave it at that. And if you're hardcore Scorpions person, you're probably going to want Hound Dog for crying out loud anyway. So it's fine.
Yeah.
So Martin, you went 9. I'm sorry. Is that what you did? 9? Okay. All right, 7.5, 9.5, and a 9. This is we've got an 8.7.
All right.
And an 8.6. So, ladies and gentlemen, the winner tonight is Judas Priest. Just by a smidge. It's really
People
a tie.
love that album to death. I mean, I've never heard anybody not like Unleashed in the East. And people like Tokyo Tapes, but they won't bring it up and talk about it in the same excited tones as they will.
Yeah, I don't think Tokyo Tapes ever. I was looking at the numbers. Unleashed in the East went platinum here at least, and I don't think Tokyo Tapes even made I don't even know if it ever went gold here. Do you know? Anybody know?
I don't think so. I don't think it's certified at all.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Basically, everybody, it's a tie. But we do want to hear from you in the chat. What are your thoughts on Unleashed in the East and Tokyo Tapes? Give your rating out of 10. We want to know. But anyway, we must wrap this dog. Well, hell, we're almost 45 minutes in. We might as well wrap this dog up.
Absolutely.
I want to thank both Daves for making an appearance tonight. Of course, Martin and myself. If you'd like to be on these episodes, we'd love to have you. You'd like to support this channel, we have a Patreon. Oh, yeah, I should mention that. We lost Ozzy Osbourne today. May you rest in peace. Check out Martin's, he did a brief tribute to Ozzy on the show. Go check that out. But we lost Ozzy 2 weeks after the show.
Yep.
It's crazy. I don't know.
17 days.
Yeah. It's just so weird.
Glad he made it to the show.
100%. All right, everybody. So we do also now we have Patreon. Now I'm all fractured. We have a Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel that way, that'd be great. We also have a Ko-fi, buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We'd much appreciate it. But hopefully we can turn you on to one of these records. You might already have them, but it's all about talking music here on the Contrarians. So please like, subscribe, at least do that. Check out Martin's tribute to Ozzy, and we will be back soon again with another episode of something. We'll see everybody.